Good seeing you all. I don't know about you guys, but even though we are the industry actually building the infrastructure to support this whole digital economy, digital transformation and all that, nothing really beats coming out in the open here and checking that people still have legs and feet to stand on and pants to put on. So this is really a great event. So great finally be here. Thank you for the organizers to having us. So my name is Søren Schrøder. I have great pleasure working for Schneider Electric, and for the next 30 minutes we're gonna look into some of the great innovations, some of the initiatives that we're doing within Schneider Electric. And don't worry, we're not gonna go into, even though it's very, very tempting, go into a long product discussion. Great products coming out, very innovative products. But again, we also, I think, at a place in our history where what we can innovate on the product is becoming less and less. If you look at some of the UPSs in the market today with already 99% efficiency, okay, we keep developing it, but again, what we can actually gain from those development from a sustainability point of view is probably getting smaller and smaller. So this presentation here for the next 30 minutes is really going to be a little bit of an add-on to my colleague Kevin Brown's presentation from last year, for those of you who remember that, online, digital, and all of that, around, when there's no plan B. What do you do when sustainability is not really an option, which it shouldn't be for any of us. It's actually an obligation more than an option. And let's just start here. I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with this Earth Overshoot Day concept, but it basically marks the day that is the tipping point for where we consume more resources than we can actually regenerate on the Earth within that calendar year. And that date has been going, earlier and earlier in our diaries every single year. Last year it was July 29th, sorry. This year hasn't been announced yet, but I don't think it takes too much imagination to figure out it's not improving per se. When we then look at and zoom in on individual countries, we can actually see that, and actually this country overshoot day then marks the date where we would have our Earth Overshoot Day if everybody lived like they do in this specific country. And if we just look at the Nordics, where we're kind of talking about today here, just look at Denmark there, already March 28th, closely followed by Finland, March 31st, then Sweden on April 3rd, and Norway, best in class, April 12th. But come on, this is not good enough, We keep claiming we're a very sustainable region in the world, and still we're actually worst in class in our way of living, okay? This is not good enough. I don't know about you guys, but I have two teenage daughters at home, 16 and 19, and we're in the phase where everything dad says is stupid, but it's also the phase where they start, really feeling very much about what's going on in the world, caring a lot about what's really going on here. And trust me, they do challenge me, and they do challenge my whole generation, means all of us, How can you keep doing what you're doing, is the question I often get, Why can you ruin the planet like you've been doing? And again, the easiest point here would just be, just point on our parents' generation, our grandparents' generation, and say, hey, look at these guys, it's actually those who did it. But as you can clearly see here from this little graphics here about temperature anomalies, it is actually our generation. It's becoming very, very visible that what we are doing is on an unsustainable path, okay? We're at a point where we are doing more and more digital, and we heard this morning about, yes, when we do digital, we probably also save, so that's a good thing. But as an Earth, we are actually moving in the wrong direction, and this needs to stop. This needs to stop now, okay? So I think one thing we need to be very clear about while we embark on this whole, digitalization journey, and again, I think most of us in the room here probably had some kind of big celebration during COVID. Come on, this is good for our business. Everybody's going digital, Zoom, Teams, whatever. We're building data centers and the likes, at a pace never seen before, okay? So this is good for our business. But we also have to be very clear on the fact that, our increased use of data, and I think there was a great example this morning from El Gabello, yes, now we can do things digital, and look at all this data we now generate, We actually have an obligation here to also look at what does this do for our planet, okay? And again, there might be some of you sitting in the room today just saying, yeah, come on, we're supporting this. This is great, we're having all these initiatives. So let's just have a few examples here around, what we're actually talking about when we talk about, the consequence of our digital lifestyle, Some of you might know this guy, once a great footballer, Cristiano Ronaldo, now just playing for a shit team in the UK. When he's busy, posting on Instagram, new haircut, new diamond earring, or whatever is more important to him these days, he's 330 million subscribers. Well, have a look at that picture. And that whole transaction, that chain that happens there through our distribution network on our data centers and whatnot, actually consumes around 42 megawatt hours of energy. These are numbers from a great article a few years back from Uptime Institute. Just to put that a little bit in perspective, I'm one of those propeller heads that has already jumped on the electrical car wagon. I'm driving a Tesla Model Y, just changed, performance. If I take that amount of energy that Cristiano Ronaldo is using, not deliberately, obviously, because he doesn't know better, but using, and I put that into my electrical car, I can go 6 times around the earth at equator in that car for the same amount of energy. That puts things a little bit in perspective, right? One transaction, boom, boom, or, driving forever. Another little one here, I don't know about you guys, but it seems like during COVID, there wasn't a streaming service available in this country I all of a sudden didn't subscribe to. And I think it's the same for a lot of you guys. There was a study made that, an Ultra HD, 4K video on Netflix, streamed for 2.5 hours, consumes around 3 kilowatt hours. Same article from Uptime. So, okay, it doesn't sound like a lot, right? I don't know about you, but I do consume a lot of, energy in my house. So 3 kilowatts doesn't shock me, really. And again, it's the whole chain we're talking about here. But then when you start looking further into that little study there, it actually turns out that during the first wave of the pandemic, just in the US, there was 200 million hours of content streamed from Netflix every single day, right? Let's just do a little quick assumption here. Let's say 10% of that was in Ultra HD, so the utmost best format you can get. That actually corresponds to 733 gigawatt hours per month, just Netflix, just Ultra HD, and just in the US. I'll let you do the math because I don't know numbers that big if you want to do this on a global scale. But this is huge, huge numbers. Okay, this talks about a lot of energy. And again, all of these things are pretty innocent, right? It's just an Instagram post or it's just streaming a movie. But the consequence of that, is actually quite imminent. So again, for a lot of years, actually for most parts of a decade, I personally traveled the world with this kind of message. This is actually not taken from data centers. It's actually originally from management consulting about how you measure, efficiency in an organization. But again, it goes very well for data centers because again, if you want to manage things very closely, you need to first measure. Okay, we've been doing that for a very, very long time now, and as an industry, there's probably not a lot we're not measuring anymore. But now again, we have this needle in the haystack dilemma. We're aggregating so much data. How do we actually find out what is the most important part here? So from a Schneider perspective, we kind of want to rephrase this a little bit. Measure what you need instead. Find out what is the most important for you in this journey. And here's the really important word there, and that's why it's highlighted in green. Measure, We have been, as an industry, getting away for way, way too long with a couple of funny statements, I think we can call them. Let me just give you some examples here. We reduced our CO2 emission by 20% over the last 3 years. Perfect. Good for you. Well done. But from what to what? If you came from something that's extremely shitty and just made it a little less shitty, I'm not probably too impressed right now, right? But if you're already doing extremely well and you're really, nailing it very closely and you're improving that further 20%, fantastic, Let me give you another one. We're operating the world's most sustainable data centers. Well, fantastic. Some of you can probably guess where this is coming from. Fantastic, but how do you measure that? What do you compare against? How do you actually make sure that that is comparable to a large degree? And then the last one here is my personal favorite. As a green data center, we protect the world's resources. Well done, Greta Thunberg. This is actually what I call empty statements. And you know what? We've been getting away with this for way too long. We are actually crooks, if you look at it. We are getting away with empty statements like this and just, trying to impress the world about how great we're doing. I don't know about you, but I really paid a lot of attention to the remark that was made this morning that as an end user in this equation, these guys, girls, was looking for comparable metrics. How can we go out and look at all that opportunity we have out there and actually select the best one for our operation. Not just looking at price, not just looking at terms, but actually looking at true sustainability initiatives. How can we do that? This is not an option for us. This is something we need to do. And let's just give you some examples here to compare against, what other industries are doing. You all know this. When I went out and bought my new car there, the industry has decided on a simple metric called VLTP. Not great, okay, it says 514 kilometers. Will I ever go 514 kilometers in my car? Probably not, the way I drive. But it gives me a comparable metric. Very simplified, of course, compared to the very, world we live in. If you want to buy a fridge, an oven, whatever household appliance, you get an energy rating like this. You have a choice. You can buy the model you're looking at with that specific energy rating, or you can maybe upgrade, pay 40% extra, but get a better model, better sustainability footprint. And again, even if in this country you buy a house or build a house, you get an energy label that tells you about how efficient will that house be. This is all around us, and still we are getting away with a little bit of metrics. We are keeping secret and running in the back room and maybe comparing ourselves against ourselves and even some of our sites against other sites. We need to be much more open about this. If you're a government body and you've already done everything possible, renovated all your buildings, changed the carpool to electrical cars, plastered your roofs with solar panels, and now you really want to be buying the most efficient, whatever cloud or co-location service, how would you go about that today? Because you're going to get apples and oranges and try to compare those. So we need to move forward from this. And again, we heard it this morning from some of our industry leaders. They're doing some great initiatives. Most of it started with very, very bold statements. These statements are, I think it was called a little bit empty, some of it, and a little bit, a free round, because you can make a statement for 2030, and who's going to count when we get to it. But again, the bold pledge is not the important part itself. It's the fact that you have a plan to, drive in a certain direction. Now, the important part obviously becomes, how do you actually ensure you have enough milestones on the way? So here's some great examples, for carbon emission, for waste management, for water management, from different of our industry leaders that really take this very seriously. And yes, I know exactly what you're feeling now if you're not actually working for these guys already. This is not as easy as it sounds, right? Because these guys, they have the means, they have the resources, they have the dedication. This is what they do for a living. I'm just a co-locator, I'm just running a data center. I don't have that. But this is actually where, my offer for you today is really, we from Schneider have developed a little framework, a sustainability framework. This comes out of our Energy Research Center. It's been doing these things for 20 years now, tracking the industry closely and coming up with new initiatives. And what they've come up with is actually a little bit of a recipe for you guys. How can you get started on this journey without, being overwhelmed with all the opportunities that's out there, right? So some of them are, very forward. I think you can probably guess some of them here. But the first one is really around energy. I think earlier today was also mentioned that, depending on where you get your data from, we're consuming somewhere between 1% and 2% of the global energy resource in the data center industry. Is that too much or not enough, or what is it? Well, the thing is that we are actually at a level comparable with the airline industry as well. I don't know about you guys, I don't think that's the most efficient industry to be compared against. Will we grow? Yes, absolutely we will, because we are supporting this digitalization, so we don't have a choice. But we do have an obligation as well to ensure that that energy that we put into that mix, that we handle it the best possible way. So here's a set of metrics for you that will help you get running on your energy journey. The next one is around greenhouse gas emissions. No surprise there either, Remember, greenhouse gas is where we talk about our scope 1 or scope 2 or scope 3 emissions. When you start out on the journey, you might have your biggest portion in scope 2, no secret. If you look again at the industry leaders, you'll find out that 95+% of their emission is in scope 3. That's all the rest of us, right? That's our obligation as a vendor, for instance, to actually make sure that we support on that journey. This talks about collaboration. This is not something we can do in isolation. It's all about how we collaborate about these things. Remember, greenhouse gas is also things like SF6, Are we actually still buying units with SF6 gases in them? These things need to be documented and explored and disclose to the world. Water, again, not something we necessarily see a lot in this part of the world, but it is a huge challenge. We also do see data centers here being built with an excessive use of water, something we need to control. KPIs here for you to get started on measuring, tracking, and disclosing your plans here. And then we start going into a little bit more exotic parts, waste management. Again, not something we discussed 10 years ago. Today, I don't get a tender from any of the big ones that doesn't talk about, how are you going to handle the waste management part of this? How are you going to ensure you don't wrap your things in too much, excess equipment so that you generate too much waste? And by the way, the waste you do generate, how do you actually, handle that? So there's some metrics for you that will get you started on that part of it. And then the last one, this is where it becomes even more exotic, but no less important. The land and biodiversity. Remember, we are part of an ecosystem here, no matter how we like it or not. When we build a big concrete block, or, by the way, now we built them in wood, right? By the way, if you want to see a wooden data center, go up to Stockholm. There's a great example there up there with EcoDC. But what is the impact we have? What's the impact we have on, on the livestock that actually live in that area? What footprint are we imposing on these guys by our actions, by building our data centers? I don't know about you, but there was an article published a couple of weeks back that talked about all these wind turbine farms that we've all been celebrating. Offshore, great green energy. Now the question was raised, does that actually have a positive or a negative impact on our local ecosystem? These are things we need to care about, Again, this is obviously a journey, and this is also how we suggest you lay it out, that, sustainability doesn't start Monday morning and end by lunch Friday, right? We all know that. So this journey really, is kind of like climbing a mountain. You start in your base camp, you get hold of your, the stuff you're probably already looking into today, your energy, your emissions, your waste, your water. You nail those KPIs, and you set some good targets for yourself. Set some bold ambitions. Disclose them to the world and show your progress towards it year by year. When you move up the mountain there, you start adding things like waste to your equation. You start, tracking how you're managing that. And when you reach the summit and becomes an energy sustainability black belt here, you add land and diversity to it, and it becomes a full, circle equation here. So again, this is a journey we've been through in Schneider. We've been doing this for 15 years. You can go onto our website. You can see our ambitions for 2025, for 2040. It's out there with the metrics we track this on. We also disclose our progress, and sometimes we're making very good progress. Sometimes we're actually way ahead of ourselves, and sometimes we are lacking a little bit behind. But we are very honest about it, and we disclose it to the world. That's why, it's one of the reasons why we were the most sustainable company in 2021. This year, unfortunately, down to number 4, but that's only because great companies like Vestas and Christian Hansen is doing even better now. So that's fantastic. This white paper here is actually what I've been discussing here. That we have, a framework, a set of metrics, a journey for you laid out. How can you get embarked on this journey? If you point your camera to the QR code up there, you can actually download it straight away, or you can get it from our little booth afterwards. If you don't feel comfortable doing this on your own, there's also a climate change advisory service that we have globally, where we are supporting not just data centers, but entire industries, in their journey towards a better sustainability metric. So, again, make sure you get the handle of this. Make sure you start tracking this decently, and most of you are doing that already. But also have the guts to actually be ambitious. Have the guts to go out there, disclose what you're doing, and tell the world about it. That's the only way we as an industry can truly, upgrade here. And then, I can't resist this. I promise you no products, but I'm getting close now. But coming from a background in APC, where we kind of invented the whole modular data center concept, I still think this is the most efficient way to go about. Modular, scalable, repeatable designs. And this goes all the way from single racks. A micro data center like that is actually a data center. It has power, it has cooling, it has fire suppression, it has security, it has all the elements of a data center. We see great companies today standardizing on these designs, sending them out to all their retail stores, factory floors around the world, so they have a predictable outcome of their operation, both from an IT point of view, but also from a sustainability point of view. That goes up to, row-based data center, basically copy-paste designs that goes into your traditional data centers. What we're seeing a huge uptake for in these days, and this is really some of the things I want to touch on here, is really these, modular data centers, as an example here, an all-in-one data center, as we just delivered here in Denmark recently. Basically a data center in a form factor similar to an ISO or non-ISO container. Drop it into your parking lot, and there you have it. It's your data center. It has a predictable sustainability footprint because it's factory tested and it's designed that way. Or you want another one, copy-paste, we go again. We see that also around the Nordics right now with what we call the full powertrain, MV, LV, UPSs, all bundled into one, either open design power skids like these that basically slides into your wooden data center when you have built it. It's all factory tested, comes in, predictable outcome from a sustainability point of view again. You can also get them in closed form factors, so they basically sit outside your building in a container style. So again, when you do this, make sure you underpin that with your software choice, so your sustainability, again, for these things doesn't just become an add-on, not an afterthought, but something that was already integrated into it. By the way, I'm actually very happy to see that, this whole modular concept, we're seeing that, come up more and more these days. But we also see it come up from some of our great customers in terms of actual buildings. We see buildings coming up in this country right now that is very close copies of buildings already existing around the European continent. Again, fairly predictable outcome. You know exactly what you're getting. It's not something you have to redesign every single time. Copy, paste. And the last thing I just want to touch on before we round up here is, and those of you who have the pleasure of sitting on the board with me in the data center industry knows this, that I'm sometimes a little bit vocal when the communication around data centers is not optimal. When we start seeing, negative talks about, look at these guys, they're consuming all this energy. We have a lot of things to offer for the ecosystems we're part of. We've talked about reuse of excess heat for a long time. We also need to start putting some pressure on these guys that sit on the other end of that equation, the district heating companies. What exactly are you offering as innovation instead of just saying, entrance fee is 80 degrees here, So there's definitely something there to be further explored. I also think when you look at our whole, energy grid today, you start seeing an energy grid that unfortunately becomes a little bit more unstable. It was easy when we did fossil. We can just, turn it up a little bit or down, whatever is needed. When we start having these green sources, we sometimes have, a little bit more, instability in the network. Data centers, with the amount of power going in and out of them, is actually great support of that grid. We can offload for a little while, right? FFR, fast frequency response, is a great example of that. If you have megawatt UPSs backed up by batteries already, you can engage in FFR today. It's literally just a piece of software and a little PLC to control it, and you're going. You can earn money on this. There's money in this, You actually offer to go on battery for 5 seconds, 30 seconds, and you earn money on that action. Is that an uncomfortable situation? No, it's just battery. You do it every time you test your diesel generator. Anyway, whatever. So again, we have a role to play in the ecosystem we are part of, and we need to take that very seriously. So just to round this off, again, those of you who know me know I'm a great supporter of English Premier League football, especially Liverpool, the best team in the world. I love seeing that team. I love seeing how they innovate the game. But what I love even further, even more than that, is seeing the competition they constantly have at Manchester City. How those two teams, how those two great coaches can constantly push each other to the amount of points you need in a year to actually succeed and win the championship. But this is the kind of thing I'm talking about we need to do for our industry. Let's be bold. Let's get our ambitions out there. Let's be very clear on how we can compare ourselves against the rest of the market. Yes, it's very uncomfortable at first, but we don't have a choice. We heard it from our customers this morning. We don't have a choice. This is what they ask us to do. This is their demand. So set those ambitions. Make sure you have the metrics. Make sure you have the milestones to go along the way. Just to address some of the statements that was made earlier today, it's not just about the ambition out there, but it's also about how do you actually get there and how do you show that you're pushing in the right direction. And then by all means, go for these repeatable designs. It's the best way to suit up yourself for actually, embarking on this sustainability journey. So, the only question that really remains here, will you lead or will you be left behind? That is the only choices you have today. There is no other choices. There is no gray area. So, very much, thank you. off.